Hi, this is Bob from Hobby Concepts. Today I'm going to build this Viper MkII from Moebius Models, Battlestar Galactica kit. It's a great little kit. I'm going to build it straight from the box. I'm going to build it in 2 days, build it and paint it. It's going to be a very quick build, so let's get started. At our last IPMS meeting, I picked up this Battlestar Galactica kit from one of the guys. As you can see, the box is pretty mashed, but the kit looks fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick build on this. No photo etch, no fancy parts. I'm going to throw it together as fast as I can so I can take it to the next meeting and just see how quickly and how nicely I can put this kit together with not a lot of extra work. I'm going to go wash the parts with soap and water because they're a little dusty, and lay those out and let them dry, and we'll come back and build this. I'm going to see if I could build this in about 5 hours. One of the first things to decide is whether to have the landing gear up or down, because they include gear doors here, and whether to have a pilot in place. There's a real nice little resin pilot figure here. So I have decided I'm going to build this with the landing gear retracted and the pilot figure. I'm going to go to work on putting in gear doors, gluing the wings together, gluing the tail together, some of the big assemblies, so that I can let those dry as I work on the cockpit detailing. I promised I was going to do a quick build, and I am, but I already started thinking, well, I should probably drill out the thruster holes. But no, we're going to build it right from the box. A couple little things to note. There's a number molded in to the side panels that shows when they're dropped in, so that needs to be sanded out. Also, I don't think you can see it, but there's a universal trademark on the bottom of here that needs to be cut off. So I'm going to cut that off, glue the parts together. I glued the wings together, the tail. Unfortunately, my tail was mismolded, and you can see there's a piece missing here, so I have to build that up out of some plastic. But everything else fit pretty good. The gear doors went in fine. I'm going to go ahead and paint the cockpit in my little resin pilot figure and get that assembled, and then I can mount that into the body, and then we'll get it put together. I found an interior color I like, XF82 Ocean Gray. You can also see I actually did put some wires in just because. So I'm going to go ahead and airbrush the interior in this Ocean Gray. I'll do the interior, I'll do the side panels. I've got the forward dash here. So I'll get those all airbrushed, and then I'll do some detail painting. Finished airbrushing the cockpit, hit the seat with a little buff, painted the pilot figure with some metallic gray, and then I'm going to just dry brush his vest a little bit with some dark gun metal. And for dry brushing, I just take a little and wipe it on a piece of cardboard here to get a lot of paint off of the brush, and then I'll just dry brush these areas I want a little darker. I'll follow this up with some Tamiya panel line marker. Get his vest a little darker here. I don't know if that really shows up on the camera. Looks pretty good. Once I'm finished with him, I'll spray some clear flat on him, and then I'll paint the faceplate with probably gold. not much reason to paint the back, because when he drops into the seat, you really can't see on the back side of him. So I'll dry brush that, and then we'll come back and put a little panel line marker on him. Before I assemble the cockpit, just show you what I'm looking at here. I painted the seat with buff. Just put little dots of color on some of the raised parts. My pilot figure is painted in the visor. So I still am going to hit those with some panel line marker, this Tamiya panel line marker. But before I do that, I want to get the decals installed in the cockpit. So they're pretty straightforward. There's a really good decal layout guide in the instructions. I'm just going to cut out one of them here. And I'll put those in some water. Water slide decals, so water will loosen them up after about 20 seconds or so. Little bowl of water right here. Now that decal that I just put in there is the Dravis console, and it mounts right here on this clear plastic part. That's clear so you could backlight it if you want. Again, I'm not doing that kind of model right now. The next one of these I will do that. Light it, do some photo etch. This one, we just want to get it done. Decal will just lay on here, and we'll slide the paper out. Now you can see a little corner of it broke off. That's okay. I'll just position it where I want it. The corner. Still get on there. Lay that in place. And that's it. I might suck the excess water out with the edge of a tissue or a piece of paper towel like this. The decals are laid on, so now I'm going to brush a little microsol on them, which is a decal solvent, and it softens them and makes them conform to any surface. Basically turns them into almost like paint. Once that's dry, then we'll spray a little clear flat on everything, and then weather it. And this takes a while to dry. You can also see there was some small decals that went on these side panels. So we'll let that dry a little bit, spray a little clear flat on them, and then we'll come back and do a little bit of weathering, and then we can put this cockpit in and glue the whole house together. Got my Viper glued together here. The cockpit's in. Glued up pretty nicely. Some of the fit is not real good around these engines, so I'll probably rescribe these after I before I get ready to paint. You can see I left the two guns off. I'm going to paint those separately. What I have to do now is I'll mask the canopy and I'll glue it into place with micro crystal clear before I paint. Then I'll come back, clean up all the panel lines, re-etch these, and get it painted. So went together actually pretty quickly. Good weekend project. So I'll get that masked and we'll come back and start some painting. One thing I thought I'd show, I'm going to mask this canopy with parafilm, laboratory film. So I've got a couple X-Acto knives, one with an almost new blade and one with a brand spanking new blade. So I'll take the parafilm and I'll stretch it out to activate it. And then we'll just stretch it over the canopy. It's a very light tack, but it does stick down. So we'll get all stuck down like that. Then I'll use a brand new X-Acto knife blade to trim it, and then we'll glue the canopy on. Canopy is masked. I will glue it in place with micro crystal clear. Let that dry and then we'll be ready to paint. Since this was going to be a quick build, I thought I might get away with the stand that came with the kit, but I just couldn't handle it. So I found an old award plaque, actually from the model contest, and cut a few bits of brass. So I'm going to put a piece of brass tubing in it because the surface got ripped up. I'll cover it with a piece of styrene and I'll paint that in the model color. And then I'll glue this brass tube up inside the Viper. I'll put this piece of tubing in here as a stop so it doesn't slide down too far. I polished that with just a little bit of polish, and I think that'll make a much nicer stand. It'll actually be a little higher because of the spacer for this Viper. So I'll glue those in there and continue to, you can see I've got some more putty on here. There's a lot of seams in this thing and they're really bad. This upper seam here, this seam, this lower seam, the pieces didn't match very well, so I've got quite a bit of sanding still to do before we can paint. Alright, I'm ready to put some paint on this. I used a little seam scriber tool to scribe some seam lines in where these two pieces fit together because the fit was really bad, so I just turned it into a panel. I'm going to start by doing some black shadow coating underneath, and then I'll paint it with a mixture of white and light gray. So I'll go through the painting process as I do that. I'm going to start by highlighting some details with black. And this is just NATO black that I've thinned. Okay, here's my coat of panel line accenting. So now I'm going to be ready for paint. Okay, I mixed up some paint that's 2 parts white, 1 part light gray. Let's see how that looks. I like to do very light coats to start with. So we'll throw some paint on this and see how it looks. I've got my base coat on. That's 2 parts white, 1 part gray. I've been looking at these decals, and I've decided for the red stripes I'm going to mask them off. So I'm going to mask that off, and then I'm going to mix up some red that I like to do the stripes. Got this masked off and ready to shoot some red paint. I took some Tamiya red and knocked it down with a little bit of Tamiya Hull Red to make it less intense. So we'll see what that looks like. Definitely glad I didn't go the decal route. I'm going to go ahead and shoot this red and then we'll see how it looks. Just got this out of the spray booth with the red. So now I've got a few choices to make. I've got to paint these details in here, 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 and the engine bells. And I also have a lot of decals to put on. So I think what I'm going to do, I like to seal the paint before I do any weathering. I've got weathering to do. So I think I'm going to go ahead and put some clear gloss on this. Then I'll put the decals on. Then I will paint some of the details and put the clear flat on. Probably do the weathering after I do the clear flat. So gloss, decals, painting details, painting engine bells, and then weathering. Decals are on. I did spray clear gloss on it and put the decals on using micro set. I put that on before the decal and then micro sol to work the decals into the surface. I'm going to let those dry for a while. I'll put a coat of clear flat on it and then I'm going to paint the equipment bays, the exhaust nozzles. Then I'll go to work and do some weathering. Turning out really good. I'm quite pleased with the results so far. For a quick build, it's coming out very nicely. I've got the Viper now with clear flat on it. Decals are all on it. Everything turned out good. So now I'm going to paint some of these equipment bays. I'm going to do them kind of one at a time. And I've used one of my favorite masking methods, which is post-it notes, to block those off. So I'm going to go ahead and spray those. I'll do the other side. I'll do the engine drum back here, and then paint the rear exhaust nozzles. Post-it notes make a pretty good simple masking, and they will not pull anything off. I shot this with some metallic gray XF56. So I can take off the post-it notes. Let's see how we did. Post-it notes are great because they just don't stick. Yeah, that looks really good. Nice contrast, and we'll get that weathered up with some panel line marker and some dry brushing, but very pleased with that. So now I have to do this side in here and this side over here, so we'll get that done. Okay, I have finished all the base painting. Again, the gray is a mixture of 2 parts white and 1 part light gray from Tamiya. The red is a mixture of red and Hull Red, a little bit of Hull Red just to tone it down. The engine bells I painted with, I base coated them with gold titanium and then airbrushed gun metal over the top and left a little bit of gold titanium showing in the center. Looks like a really nice highlight in there. The bays here are metallic gray. Turned out really good. Now it's time to do some weathering. The way I like to do it, of course, is just finish the model first, get it the way I like it, and then weather from there. I'm going to actually do some pretty reasonable weathering on this. I figured that they were well used, so I'll do some chipping on the red and probably some rubbed off paint areas on the gray, weather up the engine bells a little bit more. So I'll show a few tips and techniques for that when I do it. But overall, really happy with how this looks so far. I think it's going to turn out really good for a quick build right from the box. As I start the weathering, I'm going to show you a couple of techniques I use. I'm going to take, this is the paint I mixed for the Viper, and I'm going to do a little bit of wear on these red stripes. And so I'm going to take this paint, I have this real short little brush here, I'm going to get the paint out of it on a piece of cardboard until there's hardly any paint left in it. And then I'm going to just do a little damage on the edge of these stripes. Now you'll notice I'm working on the bottom. And that's on purpose, just to see how I like my damage. But I'm hoping the effect will be that of a stripe that's peeling up a little bit on the edges, maybe even in the middle. So that's one effect I'm going to use. I'll let that dry for a little while and see how it looks. The other thing is this Tamiya panel line accent color. This stuff is just amazing. I'm going to just drop a little bit on this rear grate here, and it's real thin and just washes into all the little crevices. And really brings out the highlights on that. So I'm going to play with the bottom here and see how it looks, and then I'll move on to the top. Got some panel line marker on here now and stippled around the stripes. You can see how it highlighted, a good example of how it highlighted some things. Highlighted the rear panels. One last thing I'm going to do is a little dry brushing of some aluminum, and that's going to be just a little bit of wear around some points you would normally associate with wear. And even a few just wax. So I'll do that on some of the bottom here, and then we'll go to work on the top. Okay, and here is a finished product. Turned out, I think, really good for a very fast build. A couple things I'd like to point out on this kit, and I will build another one of these, and I'll do some of these things differently. A couple things. First off, the seams. The top seam here and the bottom seam underneath are really horrible. I sanded and sanded, wet sanded, puttied, and I can still see a hint of a seam there. So the seams on this kit require a lot of extra work. The fit on a lot of the parts is bad. I actually cut a panel line here and here because the pieces didn't fit together very good. So I just made it a panel. The bottom actually fits really good. The gear doors and everything fit nice. These engines in the back, the nozzles, the next time I do one of these, I'm going to paint these nozzles completely before I install them and then mask them off, because masking around this back end to paint these was a nightmare. It turned out good, but it was a lot of work, so I'm going to paint them and mask them first. These pieces in here were actually easy to mask, so not a problem there. Overall, great little kit. I just took my plastic sheet and airbrushed it the same color as the body. I wanted kind of an understated stand. So there we go. The Moebius 1/32 scale Viper MkII, 2-day build. Turned out really great. Subscribe to my channel for more model building videos, and thanks for watching.